What if a single art form could carry an entire civilization's memory forward into the future? That's exactly what's happening right now in the world of contemporary ceramics, and the story is far more electric than you'd expect. We're talking about clay, ancient, elemental, humble clay. It's one of the oldest materials humans have ever worked with, tens of thousands of years of history pressed between human hands. But something is shifting in the ceramics world right now, and it's turning heads from Philadelphia to the halls of the Smithsonian Institution itself. Here's the question I want to plant in your mind right now, and we're going to come back to it. Why is clay, of all materials, becoming one of the most urgent, politically charged, and emotionally powerful mediums in contemporary art today? Hold that thought. The answer is stranger and more beautiful than you'd think. Let's start with what's actually happening. In Philadelphia, a landmark exhibition called The Future of Clay opened at the Clay Studio, running from October through December 2024. And this wasn't just another gallery show. This was a statement. A full catalog was published alongside it, indexed by the Smithsonian Institution's own library systems, and included in the Native American Artists Resource Collection through the Heard Museum in Phoenix, Arizona. We're talking institutional-level recognition, the kind of legitimacy that signals a genuine cultural moment. The catalog itself runs over 100 pages of full-color illustrations and portraits. It was authored by voices like Anya Montiel and Angelik Vizcarronda-Laboy, along with Zinzi Harley and Jennifer Zwilling. These aren't casual names in the art world. These are curators and thinkers helping define what contemporary craft means right now. And when the Smithsonian takes note, you pay attention. Now, here's the first thing that makes this genuinely fascinating. We tend to think of fine art as paint on canvas, or marble sculpture, or digital installations. Clay? We think of elementary school pottery class. That assumption is exactly what exhibitions like The Future of Clay are blowing apart. Contemporary ceramic artists, especially those working with indigenous traditions, are using clay as a living language, not a nostalgic one, a living, breathing, evolving one. And that distinction matters enormously, because there's a massive difference between an art form that looks backward and one that carries the past forward into new conversations. So let's talk about why clay specifically. Why is this material having a moment? First, clay is deeply tied to place. Every type of clay comes from a specific geography, a specific land. For Indigenous artists in particular, working with clay isn't just an aesthetic choice. It's a direct connection to ancestry, to territory, to identity. When an artist shapes a vessel from clay pulled from their ancestral land, that object carries something a digital print simply cannot. It carries the actual earth. Second, ceramics are permanent. Fire-hardened clay has survived longer than almost any other human-made artifact. The oldest known ceramic object, a small figurine found in the Czech Republic, dates back roughly 26,000 years. When contemporary artists work in clay, they're participating in an unbroken chain of human expression that stretches back to the Ice Age. That's not a metaphor. That's literally what's happening. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the open loop I promised we'd close. Why is clay becoming politically charged right now, in 2024 and 2025? The answer connects to something much bigger than the art world. There's a global reckoning happening around Indigenous cultural heritage. Museums and institutions worldwide are being asked hard questions about ownership, representation, and whose stories get told in whose spaces. Ceramics, especially traditional forms, sit right at the center of that conversation. Because these objects were collected, sometimes taken, and often displayed without the consent or context of the cultures that created them. Exhibitions like The Future of Clay flip that script entirely. Indigenous artists and curators aren't waiting to be included in the cultural conversation. They're building the room where that conversation happens. They're writing the catalog. They're setting the terms. Angelik Vizcarronda-Laboy, one of the catalog's contributors, works at the intersection of contemporary craft and cultural equity. Anya Montiel has spent her career amplifying Indigenous voices in major cultural institutions. When these perspectives shape an exhibition's framework, the work on the walls and in the kilns carries a different weight. It's not heritage preserved under glass. It's heritage alive and talking back. Let's zoom out for a second, because there's a broader creative renaissance happening right now that ceramic arts are part of. Across design, fashion, interior culture, and fine art, there's a massive move back toward the handmade, the tactile, the imperfect. We've been saturated with digital perfection, algorithmically optimized images, AI-generated visuals, hyper-polished everything. And people are hungry for the opposite. They want to see the fingerprint in the clay, literally. Search interest in ceramics, pottery studios, and handmade homeware has climbed steadily over the past 3 years. Pottery classes are sold out in major cities. Ceramic artists are building massive audiences on social media by sharing the raw, messy, deeply human process of working with clay. There's something about watching someone center a lump of spinning clay that is almost hypnotically satisfying. And that's not an accident. It triggers something ancient in us. But here's the distinction the future of clay is drawing. And this is the sharpest point of the whole conversation. There's a difference between the wellness-driven ceramics trend and the serious, politically grounded work of artists who are using clay to assert cultural survival. Both matter, but they are not the same thing, and confusing them flattens the significance of what Indigenous ceramic artists are actually doing. When a Pueblo potter shapes a water jar using techniques passed down over centuries, that's not a hobby. That's sovereignty expressed in fired earth. That's a language spoken through form, surface, and fire that has survived colonization, displacement, and suppression. That a major institution like the Clay Studio in Philadelphia, whose catalog is now indexed in Smithsonian collections, is centering that work in an exhibition titled The Future of Clay, that's a declaration. Clay is not a relic. Clay is a future. So what does all of this mean for where art is heading? Here's my honest take. The most exciting contemporary art isn't happening in the places we've been trained to look. It's not always the biggest auction houses or the most famous galleries. Sometimes it's happening in a clay studio in Philadelphia, in a catalog indexed quietly into a Smithsonian library database, carrying the voices of artists and curators who are redefining what cultural expression means in the 21st century. The future of clay isn't just about ceramics. It's about who gets to define culture, whose hands shape it, and whether we're paying close enough attention to see it happening. The answer, if exhibitions like this one are any signal, is yes. We're starting to see it, and it's extraordinary. If you want to stay ahead of everything trending, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss what's next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one.